jolly old handle again. I think this chap's voice is called a counter-tenor. It's a very pure note. I'm more baritone, but I love, obviously, true tenor. They can get quite low, actually, as in Pavarotti, or for me, Caruso is a beautiful... Anyway, the words are from the Old Testament, Isaiah, I think. Comfort ye, my people. So it's nothing new for the Lord to comfort his people. And who are his people? Sons and daughters of Abraham. So essentially anyone, I'm using that as a sort of cover-all, anyone who believes in God through Christ are God's people. So I sat outside the Cathedral and Abbey Church of St. Alban just before Palm Sunday this year now, and it is closed. The thought that occurs to me is that Tesco's, a small little metro local Tesco, not a bigger one, or Sainsbury's or Morrison's or whatever, Asda's, where they're much bigger and therefore much easier to control the flows of people, the cathedral is huge. There are several points of entry or egress, obviously for health and safety and whatever. It would be a very simple matter to allow people to go to a holy place in faith to bring their expressions of Christian love. Ha! And they're closed. Oh! Now, someone did actually say to me in the market, not that long ago, here there's a Wednesday and a Saturday market on a regular weekly basis. Are you the abbot? Well, no, I'm not, actually. If I were the abbot of, it was Benedictine in its day, for centuries, huge focal point and huge power, and of course that the dissolution of the monasteries, Henry VIII and all that lot, this sort of pivotal date, or 1539 here, when old Henry VIII kicked off and the Pope got a bit miffed at him chopping off his wives' heads and so on. I've never really understood that story fully, but he did have a son. I thought the idea was he kept marrying these women and they didn't give him a son, and he got Elizabeth the First. I'm afraid my history is that I think, with all due respect, I'm probably not interested enough to ever got into it. You're meant to learn the names of his 6 wives at school and stuff, and I obviously wasn't interested. Some aspects of astrophysics, on the other hand, I can do from first principles still, because I was the best physics student my school had ever had. Ramble. Point of story thus far is there's no leadership from the purported Christian community. They've just rolled over and let themselves be closed. The reason I'm here, physically, in St. Albans, I've been coming here since the early 70s, having lived in Mill Hill, Edgware, Hendon, that area, but Mill Hill, so my patch, if you like, is that northwest area of London, NW7. Since the 60s I've went to junior school there and so on, and senior school. Mill Hill, a minor public school, but there we are, can't be helped. And then I avoided becoming a priest in the mid-90s here, through that big cathedral and abbey church of St. Alban, through the Church of England. And then I hit the stops when I realized the Queen was the supreme governor of that organization of man, purportedly Christian, and she is obviously there also the head of the army. She's the head of state of Britain, England. Well, that cannot be. For a start, the whole organization, from its inception through Henry VIII, is false. The leaders of the sort of three biggest countries in the world in terms of, well, I don't know, there's India too, of course, in terms of its population, that's Modi. But anyway, a certain Mr. Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America, a certain Mr. Xi Jinping, the supreme whatever he is of China, and obviously Modi of India, and then Putin of Russia. So just focusing on America and Russia, both of their leaders, and you get the leaders you deserve. Putin's just voted himself into power forever, for the rest of his life. America, at least you're limited to the maximum of 2 terms for a president. And this journalist was really pushing old Trumpy baby, who I absolutely can't stand. I think he's the most utterly awful man. Wealthy, he may be, but as to the rest. And his get out, she was pushing him on the fact that America is now top of the figures for infections and deaths and so on. He was in complete denial. He said it'll be all over by Easter. Ha! And Putin's been the same, in denial. So they're in their own little power bubbles. And are well and truly caught with their pants round their ankles, quite frankly. So this journalist kept pushing old Trump and riled him. And guess what he said? You're fake. That was the best response he could give to this journalist. You're fake. Ha! That is totally the most childish, non-way of developing a discussion and argument. When you can't argue your case, you insult the other party. So he's caught with his knickers down. And Putin's going to be the same, possibly. I still find it extraordinary there's so little of this coronavirus in Africa, actually. I listened at that time of day to the BBC World Service, kicks in on Radio 4 at 1 a.m. and it's a business program, but it's very interesting. They have someone in the Far East, someone in America generally, and obviously someone in London. BBC World Service. And this coronavirus is completely dominating the news, world news. Essentially going round the countries, round the world, and how it's affecting people. Indonesia, of course, is a huge population, but they're separated. Just speaking to America has, I believe it's 51 states with Alaska. But all 50 have declared states of emergency. I think that's never been before. Possibly during, Second World War. America wasn't really threatened. I don't know. Texas doesn't have the same levels of transport and intermingling of people that the likes of New York has, or other big cities, and nothing like Delhi or Mumbai, Bombay, etc., or Calcutta, or wherever. I've been to India. Or, for me, for that matter, I'm a white African born in Cape Town, South Africa, but I'm British. My father was English, fought on the Somme in the First World War. My mother's people were Scottish. William Ross trained with Dr. David Livingstone. So, as the saying goes, if you cut me, I bleed good, both English and Scottish blood. But I'm a Christian. Where is God in all of this? For heaven's sake, when will mankind get it? They're not listening. They're not seeing. Christ says it so clearly, time and time again. They see without seeing. They hear without hearing. The Sadducees and the Pharisees. Why did they crucify Christ? We're just through Easter now, on Tuesday the 14th of April 2020 in St Albans, obviously Hertfordshire, England. That's as plain as a pikestaff. They didn't get it. It was the Jews who wanted Christ crucified. Pilate washed his hands of it, the Roman bigwig. Herod and Pilate, is that right? It was the other fellow who was the... I'm no expert at all this stuff. Christ has been in the world for 2,000 years. In people's hearts. As far as I'm concerned, he's living in me now. No one's listening yet. This coronavirus, again, they've had Ghebreyesus on, the WHO, the head of the WHO, saying it may kick in quickly. So there's this R0 thing. Should think of a better word for it. Figure. So the rate of transmission, if it's above 1, bad news, below 1, good news, essentially. And I think it's been up at 1 to 2, 3, as high as 3 maybe. So per infected person, they infect 3 more, which is obviously bad news because that's then exponential. Whereas the moment it goes below 1, then you cure the infected person, they infect, as it were, less than 1 person per million. And that means it's on the way down. This coronavirus, COVID-19, will not go away. Again, they're discussing everyone wearing masks. Well, horrors in England, the idea of it. And the mask actually is more efficacious in preventing the spread of the aerosol that comes out of your mouth and then infects other people, then you have to have a really serious, full, proper, high-spec breathing setup to go into an environment infused with this virus. So a mask is almost of no value to protect you from being in close proximity to someone who is infected. I think I'm getting that right. But it does reduce the transmission by the fact that when the droplets come out of your mouth, initially the web of the cloth or whatever it is that the mask is made of, they're larger, so it stops them bombing off, and then they turn into smaller, and then they don't last very long in the air at a large size. They've disperse and fall down, as it were, and the aerosol, which is fine droplets, are the ones that distribute further. So the whole thing is an utter, well, it's like watching, I've been saying this for what it's worth for years, the way the West behaves. It's like a supertanker, and someone has put the throttle full on, and it's going pell-mell, hell for leather, into the pier, and no one's been listening. There was Radio 4 is really very helpful to me. I don't have a television, but never mind, it's all right. And I've got a little old radio, but jolly old Radio 4, so this program, they were discussing ethical investing and the way that religious organizations invest their funds. If you purport to have good, as it were, ethical values, but actually the companies you're investing in are the ones producing the problems that you then try and go and fix. Well, that just doesn't add up, does it? And we're talking here billions of trillions of investments worldwide and of all these things. There are no, it's perfectly clear with the financial crash, there are no ethics in the way big business behaves. It is utterly words fail me, actually. So many, I don't know which one to pick. The way big business operates. Unchristian, in the true sense of Christ, who said, I've come to bring the new covenant, the two commandments. Love God, love your neighbor as yourself. And love means helping them, behaving fairly. And I'm as far as it goes, I sound English. I've lived much of my life in London here. Do have a sense of fair play. Now, will that get through to the numbskulls? The wealthy numbskulls, the big powerful leaders of the world, the Putins and Trumps of this world? Ha! I love beauty. Beauty in whichever form it takes for me. I love music, beautiful music, classical music, Beethoven, boring old me. But beauty in your actions as a human being. Amen.